Hello and welcome back to part two of our No Man's Land discussion. Kevin and I had started to talk about the ending of the film and another kind of aspect of the film, and we said, wait, we should make this available publicly as an extra in case people have already either seen the movie or they go and watch it and they want to come back and kind of hear what our thoughts are on how everything ended. So again, movies are boring. Matthew Gault, Kevin Odell, talking No Man's Land, the ending. Kevin, what did you think?
That was fucked up. It was not all right. But it just really hits at the head of just the way that the UN and how the world community looks at some of these conflicts as sort of sight unseen. Nobody's looking anymore. Nothing to worry about.
For those of you who are spoiling yourself and want kind of a rundown of what happens, so these two guys are in the trench, Nino and Chico. I think is that right, Chico?
Cheeky.
Cheeky. I apologize. Nino and Cheeky, they're in the trench. They're stuck. Their buddies got a mine under him, or Cheeky's buddies got a mine under him. The UN comes. They figure out that they're not going to be able to get the mine out from under this guy. They're trying to figure out how to get all the reporters and everyone else away from the place. Nino and Cheeky have been fighting, and for a little bit in the movie, it seems like they're going to come together, and everything's going to be all right. And there's going to be, this movie is going to show that these people, they don't hate each other, and they can come together if they're put together in a stressful situation. That doesn't happen, and some bad stuff, like the tensions escalate. They get mad at each other again, and by the end of the film, right after the UN rescues them, they kill each other, essentially. Or rather, Cheeky kills Nino, and then a UN officer, or not a UN officer, I apologize, a UN soldier kills Cheeky. They're both dead. The UN figures out that they can't remove the mine from underneath the gentleman in the trench, and so they just leave. They leave him, and as they're leaving, the British colonel puts out the word to both the Serbian and the Bosnian line that the guys are out of there. I've heard that the other side is going to try to retake this trench tonight. The implication being that one or both sides will use artillery on the trench and kind of cover up the UN's tracks. And that's kind of an accurate reading of the plan there, right?
Yeah, that's basically what's happening there.
Yeah, and that's
But
the
but
end of the movie.
more importantly, they also tell the reporters that they got the guy out.
Yes, they lie to the
And
reporter.
they take another one of the dead bodies, put a sheet over him, and they say that they got him out, but he's wounded, and that they're taking him to a hospital.
Again, the implication being that the perception of the UN is far more important than them actually helping anybody.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you were kind of started to go off on a little rant there about that. What did you
Well,
think that?
it's not the UN specifically, but it is sort of an international community thing, whereas they will help, and it is something that's kind of discussed in the film, and that's something that the French sergeant understands when he's talking to the journalists. He says, "I'll give you a story if you're willing to help me,"
Right.
so he feeds the journalist the story, and because he knows that if there's cameras pointed at the trench, then they'll have to get involved because there's international pressure. But once that international pressure is gone, once the cameras aren't looking, there's no incentive to get involved. There's no reason to get involved. But they look at it kind of through the lens of the UN here, but that's something that's common in a lot of conflicts. One of the things I did think was interesting, and one of the more powerful lines I think in this story is when the colonel actually takes the sergeant aside. He says, "I know what you're thinking. This is wrong. But even if we did save him, it would make no difference."
Yeah, and I think there's a line I wrote down that's I think right after that. Um, One of them says, I hope you understand now. It's not our business, so we stay out of it.
Right.
Um, uh, it's frustrating. It's a fictional movie and it's frustrating, but I feel. Do you think that this is an accurate representation of what goes on? Um,
Well, that I mean, I don't think a lot of this movie actually is like we talked about in the first installment of this, that checkpoint scene, which I think actually is very accurate about how the way that they worked through it with hand gestures and just trying to communicate in any way. I think that was very accurate. This, I think it's an over the top reading, and I think the justifications for this line of thinking are far more layered.
right.
But on a certain level, I think it is terrifyingly truthful in a certain sort of way. I mean, it's a movie, so they're able to come out and just sort of say it rather than go through an hour long like meeting about why they're not getting involved. They're able to just condense it into we don't want to.
Right.
But I think there is something that is very truthful about the way it's depicted in this movie. If
That's
not,
that's
if that
depressing.
makes sense. Not necessarily like accurate, but truthful. If that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah, no, it kind of does. The way like a Hunter S. Thompson piece about politics cuts to the heart of what's going on and the way it feels, but is not necessarily accurate about the actual events. Um, and the best kind of satire does that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I guess, ultimately that's what this movie is, and what it's really good at is satire of the UN, of the conflict. I think in aside from that, I think it's really sad and really well done the way um, Tanovich, the filmmaker, plays with your emotions by giving you like two guys stuck in a trench. They hate each other, but they're going to end up getting along, and he really takes you along that path for a while before just destroying it and,
Mm-hmm.
and saying like, no, look, this is no, this is not how there's no happy ending. Um, Everyone ends up dead, and the guys that are supposed to be keeping the peace aren't. Fuck. Now I'm sad.
I think the movie did its job then.
No, it absolutely did. Much better the second time around. Did you have anything else that you wanted to talk about with regards to the end or with any of that stuff?
Well, I mean, I guess I can make one other observation I made that is also kind of soul crushing. It's I really enjoyed and found interesting the sort of pseudo romantic subplot between the peacekeeping sergeant and that reporter.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's some flirtation there.
yeah, and it seems kind of like they bond over caring about the world while simultaneously being super jaded. It's a blossoming romance between two people who want to make a difference but know they can't.
I didn't even think about yeah. Ugh.
That's because that's absolutely what it is.
And yeah, and I was also never quite sure what her intentions were.
Hmm.
Like if she actually cared about him or if she was just kind of flirting because she knew that that would help her cause.
Well, that's you feel that way at first, but I think they kind of clear that up at the end when they're all leaving.
Yeah, you're right. She does. Yeah, yeah, you're right because she doesn't need anything else from him at that point. Yeah, okay.
And also, like her last question for him, like, are you okay? And do you feel okay after this? And it's very clear that he doesn't,
Yeah.
and that neither does she. And then everybody just kind of parts ways, and you get that last shot of
Yeah, that last shot, the very last shot is the guy in the trench on his back staring up into space, like staring up at the sky, and it's in the middle of the night and he's alone.
Oh, it's not in the middle of the night. It's still day.
No, I'm pretty sure it's the night at the end.
Well, yeah, no, sunset. That's what it
Sunset.
was.
Okay. But I remember it's darker than normal because they leave right at sunset. It's night. Okay, night falling as he's making peace with the fact that he's been abandoned by everybody. Ugh. So what would you get up? Would you get off the mine or would you wait at that point?
Well, well, that's an interesting question. I was thinking about that too. Like, I don't know what I would do. I mean, you're ultimately gonna die one way or the other.
Yeah.
I think after a while I would just get up. Because I don't know if because he probably doesn't know whether that artillery is going to come in. But I mean, either way, getting up is probably going to be a fast way to die.
Yeah, it'd be better than any of the other options in that situation. How awful. That's one of the that's a scene that's repeated in a lot of war movies. The scene where somebody steps on a mine and they're dead, but they have to live. They have to like live in it for a few minutes. That's always a rough scene. Can't remember. I think I saw it in Generation War recently. The German Band of Brothers. They did that. Yeah, they did because they're and they did it in Monuments Men, and mines are awful.
There's a reason why there are treaties about landmines and why we shouldn't have them anymore.
Yeah, no, yes, absolutely.
Landmines are bad.
I think we can agree on that.
They blow off kids' legs and they make us all very sad.
Well, on that depressing note, I think we will conclude part 2 of our discussion of No Man's Land for Movies Are Boring. Continue to check us out. We will be back in October with war-themed horror movies. Thank you for watching. Rewatch No Man's Land. It's a fantastic movie. Matthew Gault, Kevin Nodell. I'm really depressed now. Goodbye, the internet.